book, which is this book.
Somebody came in from Figaro and heard you give a lecture, and therefore said, let's do a Q&A, and this is what this book is about.
That is correct.
All right.
And then, when they try, because you've got to understand what is happening. This is the establishment against the rest of society. What is happening in France today, for instance, 30% of the population is for GATT, 70% against it. But who are the 70%? They're the ordinary people. Who are the 30%? They're basically big business whose dream, and I've been in big business, and I'm for business, as long as it doesn't devour society, as long as it doesn't totally destroy things. So I'm for profits, for free markets, and I'm a capitalist, and I'm perfectly proud of having been successful. But let me make it clear that we have a conflict of interest, and what is happening is that big business loves the idea of total access to unlimited giveaway labor, which is what it's going to have. And this, and therefore, in a community like France, where we have succeeded in getting the issue out, in getting it discussed and understood, 70% are now against it.
But when you strip away everything, what you were saying, I mean, and I've read this book, what you were saying is that you're going to see, if GATT passes, you're going to see labor. Jobs will be lost in the industrialized world because of the fact that companies, in the search of the cheapest labor, will move their manufacturing operations.
And you know who's going to make money over there? You know who's going to make money over there?
Who's going to make money over there?
I'll tell you who's going to make money over there. In every developing nation, you have the same pattern. You have a handful of people who control everything.
The oligarchy that controls an undeveloped
everywhere,
right, I gotta move on. You got to move on.
But what you've got, let me just make it clear, the people who are going to lose here in the developed countries are not people like me or you. They're going to be the people who lose their jobs out there. It is the poor in the rich countries who are going to be subsidizing the rich in the poor countries. It is the most extraordinary...
You will grant me that there are a lot of people, Laura Tyson is one, and the President of the United States is other, and Newt Gingrich, the new Speaker of the House in the United States Congress, and a number of businessmen disagree with you. Reasonable people are disagreeing over the impact of this treaty. So this question for you. If, in fact, the European Parliament, of which you are a member, adopts GATT, are you going to resign from that Parliament?
It's a good question. The point is, I know it's we're going to vote on the 14th. And my part, the reason why I'm in politics is to fight against this. GATT is the principal reason why I started a political party, why we stood for elections and put a whole slate in June, why we had a success, by the way, because the people were in favor of it, not the elites, and we're in the parliament to fight it. Now, what is going to happen? It'll pass in Europe if it passes in America, because the European Parliament is a false, a pseudo-democratic institution. It's no more than democratic disguise for the Commission. The idea that it's a democracy is absurd. It's already fixed by the two main parties who determine it, and that is the Christian Democrats and the Socialists. So it's going to pass whatever we do. The only thing that we can fight for is the right for people to carry out, to hold a referendum, which is an old European tradition. And that is that it be placed before the people who are given a right to vote on the single most important economic change in their lifetimes. And we will do everything, including demonstrations in the streets and bringing the people into the streets, not to adopt our plan, not to reject GATT, because that would be people imposing through the streets some political action, but to have the right to vote. What we will insist upon is the right for the people to vote on the single most important economic act that has affected their careers and their children's careers and thereafter. And it is unbelievable that here in the United States, this great country, the leader of the world, because what you decide here will determine the others, that there's been practically no debate when you had this huge debate on NAFTA, which was a pimple. It is going through because politicians think, well, why not give a good deal to Clinton on this? It's an easy one. There's no debate about it. Business likes it. Business, no doubt, will subsidize things. Business adores it. That's why it's going through. It is a fix, as it is in Europe. It's a business political fix.
It's not that simple, in fact, because there are a number of people who, not just because business is in favor of, there are a lot of people here both Democrats and Republicans.
It's nonpartisan. I agree.
Who believe in the concept also of free trade. Now, they may have a different judgment about the consequences of free trade, but in the principle of free trade, they agree.
Look, that is true. Of course, they're sincere people.
Okay.
And of that there's absolutely no doubt.
It's not that they're tools of business and all that.
Oh, but there's a lot. All I can tell you is, and let me speak from Europe, the European thing. I don't know America well enough to be able to talk about it. But in the political scene, but in Europe, the position is extremely clear. Business and politics, the ruling machinery of government and economic power in Europe are imposing this without a vote and trying to stifle the debate. Now, maybe it's not the case here. All I know is there hasn't been a debate on the single most important economic act of your lifetime.
Well, I tell you what there ought to be a debate on in this country, and we didn't really have this debate in the congressional election, and maybe we'll have it over the next 2 years. I repeat what you say here. Forget that you lay it all at the doorstep of GATT.
No, I don't lay it all at the doorstep.
Despite an expanding economy, violence increases, the number of those living in poverty grows, and urban slums spread in cities throughout the world. There is a growing realization that something fundamental has gone wrong, and a pervasive feeling that those in power do not know what should be done. That is an issue across the political spectrum, and this ought to be debated in this country, and it ought not just be a question of trade policy.
We talked about GATT because it was topical, but please, GATT in this book is only a small part.
No, I agree.
Let me explain why I used GATT, and what GATT, why it figures
I'm losing amount of time I have to talk to you, and I want to establish who you are in terms of America.
Then let me just finish this point, so I can explain what the book is.
All right.
What I'm saying in the book is that we have allowed the instruments that are supposed to serve us to become our masters. And what I've done is, I've taken certain examples. GATT is an example whereby an economic doctrine is going to destabilize our society. I've taken nuclear, which was, of course, in America, has been exemplary in many respects, because in nuclear you had a real democratic debate, and you haven't had a new plant ordered 778. But in Europe, we haven't. We haven't been allowed to discuss this disastrous form of energy, both in terms of economic terms and in terms of security and safety. I talk about intensive agriculture, where I've shown how we have destroyed our communities and communities throughout the world. I mean, these are no more than examples of how we are destroying ourselves.
All right, and read the book, The Trap, and it's interesting because it's a series of question and answer, and you can see how your mind worked and your experience. Your father was from Germany, Frankfurt, but your grandfather?
Yes, my family, the origins of Frankfurt.
Hitler, they went before the First World War, right?
Yeah, it was 19th century. Yeah. My father was born in 1878.
You were not a great student.
No, hopeless.
Hopeless. Yeah. I mean, you left. Where were you? Where were you in school?
In England.
In England. You left school because you wanted to go out.
I left at 16.
Yeah. And it wasn't an impediment to you because you said one time, had this great quote, which I suspect you may want to take back, but I don't know. You said, I'll go out and make a lot of money and I'll have somebody read to me. I don't have to learn how to read.
This is a family myth of my brothers, but it doesn't matter.
You have lived in France and you have lived in England. You have homes in Mexico and I assume here in Manhattan as well.
No, I don't have Manhattan. It doesn't matter. I'd like to, but I don't.
You have bought and sold companies. You were considered a corporate raider, proudly or not. I mean, did you when people said you are a corporate raider, you're a guy who went in there and bought American companies, and perhaps when you bought them and spun them off, some people lost their jobs then. Where was the sympathy then?
Let me explain to you firstly. Firstly, I went into business when I came out of the army when I was
I got 5 minutes in the show.
But 19.
Right.
And I started businesses. I built businesses. I built large businesses, and that wasn't terribly interesting to anybody, but I built the 3rd largest food group in Europe.
But you built it in part by buying other companies.
So does everybody else.
Of course.
So does Viacom. That's part of life.
All right, but when we talk about built, we also are talking about buying and selling companies.
Yes, we're talking, of course. Every single corporation buys and sells corporations. That's part of life. But I built from scratch and with no capital, my own corporation. It became one of the largest corporations in Europe. I also was willing to make a hostile bid, which, by the way, everybody does again now. It's perfectly fashionable. And what is a hostile bid? It's a way whereby the marketplace can freely change management, where shareholders have not done so, and where the management has not produced true value. It is part of the free market mechanism, and I am for free markets. And as far as I'm concerned, within a valid economic region, you should have the freedom for the marketplace to work.
So free trade within regions is okay with you,
Absolutely.
and in fact may be the model that you would suggest. And
it is the model I suggest.
And APEC is in part about that.
Can be, but I think that regions should be reasonably homogeneous.
Okay.
In other